Studies about industry. Industry is the production of goods and services. When I say production of goods and services, there's a big difference. By the end of the lesson, we're going to know what's the difference between producing goods and what's the difference between producing services. The Industrial Revolution is the rapid social and economic development of industrial methods. When I say rapid social and economic development, it means that things are going for the good way regarding the society levels and the economy and of a society. When I talk as well about industry, I have to take in consideration many things that we're going to talk about in this slide. First of all, when we talk about industry, we have to know that the definition is the careful use of money. This is the definition of the economy. It's the careful use of money, resources, and means production. When we are producing, of course, when we produce, we are referring to the factories and how we are producing many items. This is the first definition for economic. The second definition about economic is the system of how money is made and used within a particular country or region. So how we are using the money, made and used. A region's economy is connected with things like how many goods and services are produced and how much money people can spend on these things. So the goods and services that are produced and how we are spending the money on. So this is in general a part mentioning the first definition and the second definition about economy. And it is very important to know. The extractive industry, because we are going to talk about many kinds of industry. The first one is the extractive one. When I say extractive, it means mining, which is a process used to obtain minerals from the earth crust, such as the copper and the oil. So we are talking about mining, and I guess everybody knows what mining is. In this slide, we can see, for example, how we are mining to get some kind of resources like the copper or gold or other kind of natural resources. So this is about mining. Quarrying, which is the process of extracting rocks from the underground by blasting, cutting, or drilling. When I say extracting from the underground, it means that it needs a lot of effort to do that, more than mining. And it is part of an extractive industry as well. So take in consideration to take, for example, the rocks from the underground. We have to go for the blasting step, then the cutting or drilling. In one of the slides, we're going to see something about quarrying, which is important to know. For example, here we can see how this one is extracting the rocks by this method. The manufacturing industry is the process of making goods from raw materials. We are making goods from the raw materials. For example, we are making the sugar from the sugar cane. And sometimes we are making some goods, like, for example, spaghetti, the cars, the carpets, the papers, all of these, they have raw materials that we already count on to make them. For example, the pasta or spaghetti, it comes from the dough, the cars from the metals, the carpet, it comes from the wool, the papers, they come from the trees leaves, etc. On the other hand, we have to take in consideration as well something important, which is the raw materials such as iron, limestone, lumber, fish, and wheat are natural substances that are proceed to make useful things. I'm talking so here, as raw material example, remember some examples: iron, limestone, lumber. When I talk the lumber, I'm talking about the wood, fish, the wheat, you know it, and other natural resources. When I say natural resources, it means I can find them in the nature, in our environment. They are available over there. And we have many processes to use them later in a good way. Next to the raw materials, there is something also to mention, which is very important. Here we can see, for example, in one of the factories, how they are producing stuff, and they have, after getting them, for example, by many procedures, like fishing, we can get fish, we can just go for, this is a fish factory. We can have always some kind of chocolate factories, wool factory, paper factories. Three main processes are involved in the manufacturing: industry, assembly, extraction, alteration. What is an assembly? Well, assembly means putting together parts to make a product, such as car or airplane. So we're going to go step by step. We already know the definition of the industry that we mentioned above. We have to go for the assembly, and then for the extraction, and then for the alteration. The assembly, which is the first one, it's putting together. We are assembling things together. We are assembling, for example, two pieces together to make some goods, and so on. This is an assembly. If we're gonna see in the next slide something about that, we can, for example, see how they are making the assembly of a car, and how much of time that it takes, a lot of effort as well, and a tremendous time to do that. Those are in the cars factories. This is the assembly step. The second step is extraction, means removing components from the raw materials to obtain something like the gasoline or the oil. Here, for example, we have a slide about extraction, that we can see how they are extracting the oil from the underground. Number three, the alteration. Alteration, it means when we are molding or modifying the raw materials. We are molding the raw materials and we are modifying them. It means that we are changing a lot of things about their traits into a final product, such as modifying the wheat in order to produce flour, or cutting the trees in order to get lumber. We're going to see in the slide later something important about alteration. It means how we can get the materials. For example, here we can see how we obtain the wheat. From the wheat we can obtain flour, which is important. In the other slide, we can see how we are obtaining the lumber from the wood. C, the tertiary industry provides services, not goods. For example, you have to mention, first of all, when I say tertiary, I'm talking really about services. I'm not talking about goods anymore. They are services, especially when I talk about the services of transportation. Like, for example, the airlines, the railroad, by transporting people and products from one place to another. In the next slide, we can take an idea about exactly what we were talking about when we can just see the different ways of transportation that we are mentioning, like the airplane, the trains, cars, the buses, and the airplanes. Actually, this is a very important industry because it gets a lot of money for the country in concern. If you look and if you'll take into consideration, for example, the prices of the tickets for an airplane or for the bus. So we are always talking about the ticket prices that are sometimes high. When I talk about the cars, they are also services. Sometimes when you can find, for example, taxis to go to a place or another, it's a kind of service to transport you from place to another. The train as well, it's about providing services for the people, not goods. So it's an indirect, important type of industry. Good luck, grade 5.